partners at NBC Kundu 2, the official flag carrier in New Guinea, NCDC, the National Gaming Control Board, the PNG Electoral Commission, Office of Climate Change, NAS Fund, Ipatas Foundation, Brian Bell, and LNA Group of Companies. Please give them a big hand. Maybe in the future you'll be a sponsor one day for this program. Okay, please make welcome our adjudicators, Mrs. Magalu, Mr. John Iko, Dr. Mark Solong, and Dr. Patricia Parade. I'd like to just make note to you, the National Research Institute conducts a lot of research around the country, looking at some of the issues which we are also debating today. And we're so privileged to have Dr. Parade here with us and to listen to what the young people who are the future leaders of this nation have to say about what's best for the next 10 to 20 years. So please give her a big hand. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome our participating teams. Firstly, from Kilakila Secondary School, David Tamanabai, Lomot Kiapin, Matthew Miria, and Relinda Pisimi. And from the negative team, Tokarara Secondary School, Valentina Oibi, Alice Ashwin, Donald Mark, and Dion Rebea. As good sportsmen and women, say hello and then be enemies on the challenging table, and then later you go off again and say hello and be good friends, huh? Good sportsmen and women. Okay. Our topic of debate. There should be compulsory HIV test. There should be compulsory HIV test. The chairman would like to call upon the first speaker from the affirmative team, Kilakila Secondary. Please welcome David Tamanabai.
Thank you, Chairperson. The adjudicators, pardon me, Chairperson, the adjudicators, the timekeepers, the opposing team, the affirmative team, and the audience. I, David Tamanabai, the first speaker of the affirmative team, who are going for a topic, HIV AIDS testing should be made compulsory. Will be speaking on the legal aspects of the topic. My second speaker, Lomot, will be speaking on the ethical and moral aspects of the topic. My third speaker, Matthew, will be speaking on the social and economical aspects of the topic. And my final speaker, Relinda, will be concluding, rebutting, and giving some recommendations from our team's point of view. Now, to define the topic, HIV. HIV means human immune virus. AIDS means acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. According to the Collins English Dictionary, the word testing means to critically analyze something. Compulsory, according to the same source, means something to be done. It's a must that something has to be done by law. Now to my first point, legalize compulsory testing. According to the Universal Human Rights Declaration, Article 16.3, and I quote, "The family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and state. Therefore, we, the responsible, proactive, and visionary government of the day, take this stand to make sure our citizens are protected." Now on to my next point. To have a clear vision for our country. Now take this little illustration into consideration. When you and I go to bed and we wake up the next day, we have some form of mucus or pus that blocks our eye. And the morning itself is a beautiful morning God has given us. It's the best part of the day. I say that the mornings are the best parts of the day, and I wake up early to pray in the mornings. And when you and I wake up, sadly, our eyes are blocked from fully seeing the day in its fullness. So in order to really see the day properly, we have to go wash our eyes, clean our eyes out clearly, and then we see the day properly. In the same way, HIV and AIDS is like pus or mucus to the eyes of the vision of Papua New Guinea. That is why we, the affirmative team, make a stand and say that we must have compulsory testing for HIV AIDS in order to have a clear vision to see which way our country is heading for in the future. Now to my next point. To achieve Vision 2050. According to the Vision 2050 booklet, page 6, Unit 1.17.3, which is of health, to be more specific, Article 1, that speaks of HIV and AIDS alone, and I quote, reduce HIV AIDS prevalence from 1.28% to 0.1% of the population aged 15 to 49. Therefore, to accomplish Vision 2050, we, the government, we, the responsible, proactive, and visionary government of the day, take this stand to bring forth compulsory HIV testing in Papua New Guinea to achieve Vision 2050. Now here are two classical examples of compulsory testing. In prisons in Estonia, authorities have found the rising cases of HIV. That is why they've agreed upon a compulsory testing for every prisoner. So all prisoners in Estonia go to compulsory HIV testing. Also in the US, sex convicts are all taken to compulsory testing. Now I have one question for you here. How many of Papua New Guinea sex workers go to compulsory HIV testing? And the answer, nobody knows the answer today. And I have a question here to leave with you, for you guys to think about. And it's this: who in the world wants to live an unsure, unhealthy life? Everybody in the world wants to be sure of their health status. Therefore, we the responsible, proactive, and visionary government of the day make a stand today that we are bringing in compulsory HIV testing in PNG. Thank you.
Thank you, David Tamanabai. Please welcome from the opposing side, disagreeing to what David is saying, Valentine OB.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of our adjudicators, participating teams, my fellow debaters, and not forgetting the Papua New Guinea watching on TV. All right. First of all, I'm the first speaker, as you all know, and I'll be talking on the social aspects of why we, the opposing team, think that there should not be compulsory HIV testing. And my second speaker will be talking on the, health safety side. And my third speaker will be talking on the economical side. And my last speaker will summarize everything that we'll say, including on the ethical side. All right, first of all, he defined what compulsory HIV testing means in his own terms. But this is what my definition says. Compulsory HIV testing is what happens when a person is forced, the word is forced, to take an HIV blood test without any choice. Now, I know all of you here are grade 11s and 12s, right? Most of you. Now, the meaning of compulsory HIV test is just like if we relate it to compulsory subjects, like the compulsory subjects that we take, maths, English, and PD, which sometimes we don't like those subjects, but because it's a requirement by the education department, we just do it, right? All right, so compulsory HIV testing is just like that. You have no choice, but you gotta do it. Now, compulsory testing has serious disadvantages both for the people and the wider community. Compulsory, or we can also say mandatory, testing of a particular group will not ensure that members of the group are or will remain HIV-free, because it does not detect HIV in people who have recently acquired HIV or who acquire HIV after being tested. Compulsory testing may prevent people from seeking medical care, advice, and counseling if they fear that this will require being tested against their will. Secondly, testing without informed consent and counseling can be devastating. There are many reports of people who had no idea that they were being tested, committing suicide after finding out that they were HIV positive. My second point is on complacency. What is complacency? Complacency is another word for overcertain or overconfident. Compulsory or mandatory HIV testing will make people complacent about HIV and AIDS. People who test negative will falsely assume that they are safe and that HIV is not, it's someone else's business or problem. This discourages them from changing their behavior. What sort of behavior am I talking about? I'm talking about the high-risk behavior that causes these people or causes the spread of HIV infection. It is high-risk behavior which must be stopped or which must be changed. This is another reason why specific groups who are perceived to be at a higher risk for HIV infection should not be targeted for mandatory testing or compulsory testing. It is high-risk behavior and not one's membership in a certain group that makes one vulnerable to infection or at high risk of infecting others. My third point is constitutional rights. Forcing someone to take an HIV test also infringes their constitutional rights. For example, every person in the community has the right to personal liberty. Is that right? You have the right to choose whether you want an HIV test or not. No one should force you to do it. Is that right? The right to privacy. When other people know you are HIV positive, you are at a greater risk of experiencing stigma and discrimination in your community. Some people think that personal rights should be sacrificed for the health of the greater community. But communities have responsibilities too. Every person has a duty to protect themselves from HIV infection. It is not just an HIV person's duty to protect everyone else. With that, if you put yourself into these people's shoes, how would you feel if you were victimized because of one decision made by the government? We are not dealing with animals, we're dealing with human beings. And therefore, human beings have the right and freedom of choice whether to have the test or not. It is the decision, and as far as our constitutional law stands, you cannot go against the rights of the people because you are only violating and abusing their rights. Therefore, we, the affirmative team, stand and strongly believe that there should not be compulsory HIV testing. Thank you.
David Tamanabai. That's another lawyer too. I know you want to be a lawyer in the future, but she is also wanting to be a lawyer in the future. And there are two one-talks. One talk against one talk. Nice to have them sitting on the other side and this side, huh? All right. Let's now call on the second speaker from the affirmative team, Team Kilakila Secondary. Please make welcome Lomot Kiapin.
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, good afternoon, judges, timekeepers, and not forgetting the audience. I'll be talking on the aspect of ethical and moral. Before I do so, let me do a rebuttal on what the first speaker of the opposing team has mentioned. She has mentioned about the rights, but let me get this right, that in every right, there is always a responsibility. Okay, moving on to my point. Let me define what is ethical. Ethical is relating to moral, which is containing on the human conduct. And moral is concerned with the good or bad of a human behavior. Okay, get this correct in every mind that AIDS is here to stay. There is no cure for it. So we are trying to make a test, compulsory test for HIV and AIDS. AIDS has caused a fear and a panic in all societies, and you will not deny that. LT body gives you good ethical conduct which produces a productive human being. HIV patient may not have the good ethical moral because he or she is unhealthy with that illness, HIV. So thus then weakens the body. So the person having in mind that it's already been in the body that causes him to be lazy or something. Okay, with body weakened, it then leads to lack of mental capability. Then if a person is ill, then he or she may not respond or act positively. According to Section 1 of the Preamble of the Constitution Law of Papua New Guinea, it declares that the first goal of the national goals and directive principles shall be for every person to be dynamically involved in the process of freeing himself or herself from every domination of oppression. But in the highly charged atmosphere that has quickly developed in the response to the AIDS epidemic, there are serious ethical concerns about HIV testing, particularly that mandatory or compulsory testing should be done. In doing so, the results be disclosed in order to protect and safeguard our community. Those affected suffer silently, and through their miseries, they intend to turn around and infect others. It's in the interest of other workers, the possibility of transmission is real. And you won't deny that because it's real. HIV is spreading in a faster rate. Even outside the medical fields, industrial accidents may expose employers to the risk of HIV. So as the government of today, we as the responsible, proactive, and visionary government of today has to make a stand and take a lead as a responsible government. Because if we don't, who will? So we believe that HIV testing should be made compulsory before the human race eradicated from the face of this earth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lomot Kiapin. Now from the opposing team, from Team Tokarara Secondary, please make welcome the second speaker, Alice Ashwin.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone that is present here today and to those that are viewing. I'd like to rebut to the second speaker. She said something about those affected suffer in silence. Well, if you force them to go for the HIV testing, then that will bring more discrimination towards them. Now, the spread of HIV is a serious problem that needs to be addressed with effective measures. And coercion is not an effective prevention strategy. HIV testing should and is already voluntary. So why on earth are we trying to turn it into something that is compulsory when we all have a choice whether to take it or not? Now, would knowledge of one's HIV positive status result in changes in the behavior towards sex? I highly doubt that, because this vastly less likely to be the case with mandatory than with voluntary testing. This simply means that when people volunteer to go for the HIV testing, this means that they want a change in their behavior towards sex. And if it's forced upon them, that they don't have a choice, and there won't be any changes towards sex in their behavior. Now, compulsory testing does not change high-risk behavior, and only education and awareness can do that. Okay, it takes up to or more than 3 months for HIV to show up in a person's blood. And if people are tested before this, they may not test positive, even though, in fact, they have HIV. And now, even if the entire population could be tested, in order to ensure an accurate result, people would need to be tested more than once. Some people think that quarantine people who test positive is a good idea. However, forcing people to take a test and then isolating them from the rest of the population is not ethical, is not practical, and is not necessary. Every person has the ability to avoid infection by taking the appropriate steps to protect themselves, and this goes back to the education and awareness in public. Also, forcing people to take a HIV test creates a climate of fear when it comes to HIV. People should want to take an HIV test because it is in their best interest to do so. It should not be forced upon them. Now ask yourself this question: am I, as a citizen of a democratic country with the freedom of choice, should I let the government make my decision towards my health, safety, and concerns? And should I put my safety of my health in the hands of health workers that don't get proper paychecks and may not perform to the best of their abilities to help me on my health issues? Now, people, please stand up with me, or sorry, scratch that. Stand up for your rights and stand up and say that you have a choice to choose whether to go for HIV testing or not, and it should not be forced upon you. So I and the opposing team strongly believe that it should not, and I repeat and stress that compulsory HIV testing should not be forced upon the people of Papua New Guinea.
Thank you very much, Alice Aswin. I'd like to call upon now Matthew Miria from Kilakila Secondary to come forward and present his debate on the topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, dear adjudicators, the timekeepers, the opposing team, and the attentive audience. Before I proceed on into my arguments, I would like to make a rebut on what the second speaker of the opposing team mentioned. She mentioned forcing people. Well, we are not here to force the people, but we are simply exercising our responsibility as a responsible, proactive, and visionary government to make a stand so that all the people can be tested for their safety. Now into my point, the social and economical. Firstly, the social and economical. In the very simplest form I can define it is having to do with the lives of human beings in a community or society or nation as a sustainable of their livelihood. Well, every nation has a strength and a weakness. The strength makes a nation, and a weakness breaks a nation. And this is where our economy is very vulnerable to such hidden HIV cases. And that brings me to my point number one, a healthy workforce. A healthy workforce increases the economy of a nation by maintaining a secular income in an economic flow. And on top of that, according to the Vision 50 booklet, page 12, under the human rights law, human rights, it states, the success of Vision 2050 is contingent upon the competencies of the country's workforce. A well-educated, healthy, appropriately skilled, and honest workforce that is committed, proactive, and innovative is the kind of workforce required to implement in the Vision 2050. This is a classical example that in every nation, they require healthy healthy workers, healthy labor in order to produce healthy production. So you see, in a healthy workforce, it creates a healthy production, and when that happens, it achieves the economical goal by having a healthy, wealthy society. Upon that, I would like to make a stand for the government side that we, as the concerned, responsible, and visionary government, would like to allow that HIV testing must be made compulsory to all people. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah, thank you, Miria. And please give him a big hand. And Matthew Miria would like to be a successful businessman one day, and good luck to him. Okay, now let's listen to the opposing speaker on the topic, the third speaker from Team Tokarara Secondary. Please make welcome Donald Mackey.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, judges, the audience, and my fellow debaters. Okay, I'll be talking about the economical aspects of the topic. There should be HIV. There should be compulsory HIV testing. Okay, now to my points. When you are talking about making HIV testing a compulsory, you will definitely need money to make it happen. Now, when we talk about money, we are not just talking about some hundred thousands. Instead, we are talking about millions. And these millions are going to be used to fund compulsory HIV testing every year. My goodness. Okay. Instead of funding money to this, why don't we use this money to increase the salaries of our poor doctors and nurses who are annually complaining about their salary and walking away from their jobs, leaving the sick patients? Now, to carry out a compulsory test, the right amount of materials and tools and workers as well are needed to use in order to carry the compulsory test around the nation. And it's around the nation. It is a compulsory, and it must cover the nation. In order for you to buy the tools and materials and pay for the workers, you need money. And where does this money come from? Firstly, I'd like to stress something out that the money that comes, example, the voluntary testing. The voluntary testing, it's not the government that's funding them. It's the OSAID and the overseas donors that are funding them in, the money. So the impact law states that there is a law that is made, and it's called the impact law. And that impact law, it states that forgive me. Yeah, anyway. Yep. Okay. Sorry, that was my last biggest part that I was trying to stress out. So remember, to buy materials, it's costly. And to pay for the workers, it's demanding. For example, you look at the needle or the syringe that they use to test the blood. Allow me to give a scenario. Consider the needles that they used to carry out the test. It's not 10 toya or 20 toya, but it is roughly 2 to 3 kina per one. And you try multiply that amount by the 6+ million people of PNG. It's estimated about 8+ million. And this is just, this is just a lot of money. Imagine the cost. Then if we include if we include the transportation cost for the whole nation, and mind me, 80 50% of our people live in rural areas. Further logistics, and also the workers too. They need money to carry out the test. How can we just allow them to carry out the test without money? Come on, the workers, they need money to carry out the test to earn their living. This is life. And if we are talking about that one needle, if it can cost plus 8 million, then you try look at the other materials. Other materials and the payments for the workers. You try look at them. There would be a lot of good money spent on this unnecessary thing. For your information, I'm saying unnecessary because from an economical perspective, it's really unnecessary because these good monies should be used to fund voluntary HIV testing and other necessary such as improving health centers and carry out awarenesses. Therefore, we, the opposing team, strongly and wholeheartedly stand on solid grounds, saying that there should not be compulsory, and I repeat, there should not be compulsory testing in our free and democratic country. Thank you.
And that's a true Mangianga and Mangi Central Province speaking. So give him a big hand, Donald Maki. Well, now we're into the final two speakers from the two teams. And we'd like now to give the opportunity for the final speaker for Team Secondary, who is going for the topic, there should be compulsory HIV test. And this particular speakers, the last two speakers, will have 10 minutes for their presentation. For now, please make welcome Relinda Pisimi.
Thank you, Master of Ceremony. Once again, good afternoon, judicators, the two timekeepers, my fellow debaters, and not forgetting the audience. Well, I'm the fourth and the last speaker of the affirmative team. Before I proceed on to our conclusion, I'd like to rebut on what the third speaker of the opposition side has said. Well, you said something about money in economic perspective. Well, let me tell you this. In order for a production to be successful, there must be a labor and a healthy, a productive labor force to bring that money come to reality. And also you stated something about democracy. Well, all of your points, you guys have come up with rights. Anyway, you guys have the choice and the rights, but we have the task and the responsibility. On to our conclusion. As a responsible, proactive, and a visionary government, we stand firm and say that HIV test should be made compulsory depending on the hard facts taken on the global picture statistics. As it states, 33.3 million people all around the world are currently living with the virus, which is HIV, while 2.6 million people are infected each year, and 1.8 people in the world are dying from the disease, which is AIDS. In Papua New Guinea, according to the Papua New Guinea Strategic Goal Plan, in HIV and AIDS from 2006 to 2010, in 2007, it was estimated that 3,700 people have died from the disease, which is HIV and AIDS, leaving 6,000 people with the virus. And in 2010, 25,900 people have died from the HIV disease. And by 2012, it is expected and predicted that it will be around 208,000 people living with the virus. And by 2025, 60,000 people is expected to die from the disease. That is the reason why HIV should be compulsory tested. However, summarizing the points that my the fellow government side has emphasized, the legal aspect, it simply means to legalize the testing of HIV and AIDS, to make it compulsory so that we have a clear vision in our nation. And the second point that has been stressed is moral and ethical aspects. It is concerning with the human behavior and the conduct. Simply like, for example, if a person is infected with the virus, and if he or she is not being tested, it will definitely lead to social, mentally, I can say mentally affected. People, they will not have this sense of human. To our recommendation as the government of today, in solution to the big issue, which is HIV and AIDS, globally and in case of Papua New Guinea, we, the concerned citizen of this nation and our affirmative team, the responsible, proactive, and the visionary government team, believe that the government of today should legislate to make the compulsory test for HIV legal. And two, the government should encourage enact mandatory or compulsory testing system. And in the perspective of economic and social, the government and the people must encourage the awareness of HIV testing all throughout Papua New Guinea and in the globe. By, like for example, distribution of leaflets, posters, awareness campaign, and etc. In doing so, we believe that this will sustain and will reduce the rate of HIV and AIDS in PNG and in the world. And also, the government should allocate some funds into the economic sector to boost the economy, to produce the healthy workforce, and this healthy workforce will lead to a healthy productivity, and the healthy productivity will lead to a healthy society, and the healthy society will lead to a healthy nation. And that's when we achieve the 2050 goals or the objectives. In that case, if we create a healthy workforce and a healthy nation and a healthy race by doing the test of HIV and AIDS, we believe that we will achieve and we will become the healthy, wise, smart, and happy and a healthy society in Papua New Guinea. Therefore, we, the affirmative team, strongly, firmly, boldly, and totally believe that HIV test should and must be made compulsory in Papua New Guinea and the world. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much, Relinda Pisumi. Let me say wholeheartedly to as well, huh? There you go. Okay, that's the affirmative team on the topic. There should be compulsory HIV test. They've all spoken, and they have spoken, and they have made their point. So now, let's see what the opposing side has to say about this topic. And for the presentation, please make welcome the fourth and final speaker, Dion Rabea.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, executives, and thank you, the audience out there and PNG, and also my fellow debaters and fellow participants. Okay, before I carry on with my points, I will do a few rebuttals. I will emphasize and summarize my fellow points, fellows' points, and I will do example and illustration. I will do recommendations, conclude, and I will leave a question for you to chew on. Okay, rebuttal to the fourth speaker. You have said that health, you have mentioned health. Health reasons, meaning that health for a better workforce. Do we have health problems in HIV/AIDS or other associated health problems like cancer and other related problems? Other related problems. So if you are basing your point on health, I don't think HIV affects everyone sitting here because we all have different sickness. Second rebuttal. Second rebuttal, you mentioned that we have rights. You are talking about the rights and choices, and you are talking about your responsibilities, and we are talking about the rights and choices. Well, you guys said that rights are responsibilities, but you must also remember that in every responsibilities there are risks, and in risk you have choices to make. Those are my rebuts. Okay, to emphasize on my fellow debaters' points, socially stigmatizing. Stigmatizing, it really means that it discriminates your self-esteem, meaning that it degrades your personal character to actually believe in yourself. When you go to such compulsory testing actually means that you are forcing someone to go into that testing. That is not what we are meaning. We're meaning that is not actually what the main topic is talking about. It's saying that there should be compulsory. We're not talking about HIV/AIDS, but compulsory, meaning to force someone going into that HIV test. Okay, compulsory to force people, socially stigmatizing. When you force someone into doing the compulsory test, you don't actually know the person's health. When you take his blood test, you only have, how many months do you have to actually get the results? 3 months. And if you rush everyone coming quickly, you will inform unknown results. Is that true? Because 3 months for the whole population of PNG, man, you're talking about false witness, false accusation to every people, and that's according to the constitutional rights, and you are going against human rights, socially. Okay, health issues. You can talk. We talked about health issues because it doesn't affect you in some factors like physically, but it affects you mentally. You can actually go psycho, meaning go long. Because when people accuse you wrongly of something, you feel bad about yourself, and the more you put your moral self down, you actually degrade yourself, and it affects your health also. Economically, it is expensive. It is expensive to sponsor such system as this. And if our government is still developing, then we should not introduce compulsory testing. To my point, ethical or spiritual or religiosity. In the Bible, we have power of choice. Power of choice from the beginning of the Garden Eden. Adam and Eve had a power of choice to whether to eat from the tree of life or from the tree of good and evil. Okay, we have the power of choice whether to go and take testing or not. Okay, the whole point here, I'll give an illustration. I will direct your minds. Let's take our minds into a scenario. Let's say Adolf Hitler. Now take your minds to Adolf Hitler, late Adolf Hitler. He passed away a long time ago. Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you know about Adolf Hitler? Adolf Hitler was a what? Dictator. Okay, if he was here today and he was our governor, and he had all those rules to dictate to us and take our freedom out, what is our staple food in here? Right, affirmative team. Our staple food is rice. And if he had to say, let's get rid of rice and eat veggies, a lot of you would lose weight. All right, as you can see, can you get the picture from here? When you're forcing someone to do something, it's not a good thing. The whole point is we all have the power of choice to do what is good and what is bad. You don't have to force someone into doing the bad or into doing the good. He himself knows the risk if it's a responsibility. All right, to my recommendations. I recommend that instead of bringing compulsory HIV testing, we should actually bring more sex education to our families and to the students all around. And we should also bring more awareness to everyone so that they can be aware of the main situation that we are in. Not compulsory testing, but voluntary testing. This is what we are trying to bring across. Not compulsory testing, but voluntary. Voluntary meaning you have the right and power to choose whether to go there or not. Now, to conclude, in the constitutional law, in the Hemp Act, April 2003, the government made a law, and it was amended. They have stated, and I quote, HIV/AIDS must be voluntary, private, and confidential. And I repeat, HIV/AIDS must be, I repeat, voluntary, private, and confidential, unquote. Do you want to make a new constitutional law, the affirmative team, since they have created a law already? From all these points I have said, we, the opposing team, stand firmly and strongly believe that compulsory HIV testing should not be allowed in PNG because as you all know, the all points I have said, it's not good, and we all have the rights to choose voluntary testing. My question for you to chew on is, should we change our democratic constitution to a dictatorial constitution? Think about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The final speaker from the opposition team, from Team Tokarara Secondary, Dion Rebeya. Please give him another hand.